When I took the job as caretaker for the abandoned Blackwood Sanitarium, I didn't realize I'd signed up for 3 months of night shifts in a place where nightmares came to breed. The building sat like a hulking corpse on the edge of town, all shattered windows and ivy-choked stone, with the smell of wet rot and mildew soaking the air. Everyone in town whispered about the sanitarium, calling it cursed, haunted, a stain on the land. But the pay was good, and I thought I could handle a few ghost stories. I was fucking wrong. My first shift started at sunset. I parked my rusted-out truck in the overgrown lot and walked up the cracked steps, flashlight in one hand and a crowbar in the other. Inside, the place was dark, a cathedral of ruin and silence. My footsteps echoed through the empty halls, and the place smelled like piss, mold, and old blood. Still, I forced myself forward, my shoes crunching over broken glass and debris. The job was simple enough: patrol the halls, make sure no squatters were fucking around, and report anything weird. Easy money, right? But as I made my way deeper into the building, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were moving, pressing in on me, whispering secrets I couldn't quite hear. The peeling walls seemed to breathe, exhaling cold air that stung my skin. I checked in via radio with my employer, a man named Doug who ran the place from a remote office in town. He was dismissive, almost mocking. "Yeah, it's spooky as shit in there, man," he drawled. "But don't piss yourself. It's just a fucking building." I clicked off the radio, grinding my teeth. Just a fucking building. Sure. The first real sign that something was wrong happened around 11 p.m. I was making my rounds on the second floor when I heard it, a low, wheezing breath coming from the end of the hall. My flashlight barely cut through the gloom, but I could see the door to one of the old patient rooms was ajar. My heart hammered in my chest as I crept forward, the floor groaning under my weight. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing back to me. "If someone's in there, you need to leave. This property is private." Silence. Then, from inside the room, a sound, a wet, tearing noise, like flesh being pulled from bone. I gripped the crowbar tighter, my palms slick with sweat. I pushed the door open with the end of the crowbar, and my stomach lurched. The room was empty, but the walls were covered in something black and wet, dripping in thick, congealed rivulets. The stench hit me like a punch to the gut, a coppery, stomach-turning scent that made me gag. The words, "help me," were scrawled in whatever the fuck that substance was, smeared across the peeling wallpaper in long, desperate streaks. I stumbled back, clamping a hand over my mouth to stop from vomiting. The flashlight flickered, and I could feel the air grow colder, thick with something I couldn't see. "Fuck this," I whispered, backing away. Then came the laughter, soft at first, a child's giggle, echoing down the hall. I whipped around, shining the flashlight behind me, but there was no one there. The laughter grew louder, more deranged, and I heard footsteps, small and pattering, running up and down the hall. I backed away, gripping the crowbar like a lifeline, sweat pouring down my back. And then, something brushed against my leg. I screamed and swung the crowbar, connecting with nothing but air. The flashlight beam landed on a small doll, lying on the floor where nothing had been before. It was old, the porcelain cracked, its eyes too empty, staring pits. Its mouth was sewn shut with black thread, and one of its little hands was stained red, dripping something fresh and wet onto the floor. I backed away, my pulse racing, but something grabbed my ankle. Hard. I fell, my head slamming into the concrete floor, stars bursting in my vision. I tried to scramble to my feet, but the grip on my ankle tightened, and I felt nails, fucking nails, digging into my skin, slicing through my sock and drawing blood. The flashlight rolled away, casting wild beams of light across the hall. "Let go of me!" I screamed, kicking out with my free leg. My boot connected with something solid, and the grip released. I scrambled for the flashlight, wheezing in terror, shining it back toward my feet. There was a trail of blood leading away from me, disappearing into the darkness. And then, from the shadows, I saw them, two glinting eyes, too high up for a person, peering at me with a sick, unnatural hunger. The figure stepped into the light, and I almost pissed myself. It was tall, at least 7 feet, with skin stretched tight over a bony frame. Its limbs were long, too long, fingers ending in jagged claws, and its mouth, oh fuck, that mouth. It was a gaping maw filled with broken, jagged teeth, stretching wider than any human mouth could, like a nightmare caricature. The thing cocked its head, a sound like grinding bones echoing in the hall, and it smiled. "Stay," it crooned, its voice a horrible rasp. "Play with me." "Fuck off." I roared, swinging the crowbar. It lunged at me, moving faster than anything that size should. The claws slashed through the air, and I stumbled backward, the metal of the crowbar meeting nothing. One of its hands shot out, raking across my chest, and I felt the sting of claws slicing deep into my flesh. Blood poured out, warm and slick, soaking my shirt. I screamed, the pain blinding, but adrenaline kept me moving. I bolted down the hall, clutching the wound on my chest, barely keeping ahead of the thing as it pursued me, its laughter echoing off the walls. I burst into the stairwell, my feet slipping on the blood dripping from my chest, and stumbled down the stairs, nearly breaking my neck in the process. I could hear it coming, its claws scraping along the walls, that awful, wet laughter ringing in my ears. I made it to the first floor and sprinted toward the exit. But just as I reached the doors, they slammed shut, rattling on their hinges. I yanked at them, but they wouldn't budge. "Leaving so soon?" a voice whispered, right behind me. I turned, and there she was, another ghost, this one a woman. Her eyes were empty sockets, her mouth sewn shut with wire. Her body was twisted, broken, with bones jutting out at sick angles, and she moved with a jerking, unnatural grace. She reached for me, and the air around her grew so cold I could see my breath. "Please, no," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Her hand shot forward, ice-cold fingers gripping my throat, and she lifted me off the ground like I weighed nothing. I gasped, clawing at her wrist, feeling the bones shift beneath her dead, pale skin. My vision blurred as I struggled to breathe, and black spots danced in front of my eyes. Then, in a final, desperate move, I swung the crowbar with all my strength, hitting her in the side of the head. Her grip released, and I crashed to the floor, coughing and choking, my throat bruised and raw. The ghost shrieked, her mouth tearing open as the wire snapped, and a torrent of black, tar-like ichor poured out, splattering onto the floor. I scrambled away, the ichor hissing and steaming where it landed, burning through the floorboards. I forced myself to stand, blood dripping from my chest and my ankle throbbing. I had to get out, but every exit seemed locked, sealed by whatever haunted this hellhole. Then I remembered, there was an old maintenance hatch in the basement, rusted and forgotten. It was my only hope. I stumbled down the stairs, nearly collapsing from the blood loss. The basement was pitch black, the air thick with the smell of rot and despair. I could hear them coming, the ghosts, the monsters, all the things that lurked in the shadows of Blackwood Sanitarium. Their whispers filled the air, promises of torment, of an eternity in this place. I found the hatch, yanking at it desperately. The rusted metal screamed in protest, but it gave, swinging open to reveal a crawl space lined with dirt and old, crumbling stone. I threw myself inside, dragging the hatch shut behind me. Silence. I lay there in the dark, trembling, bleeding, every muscle in my body aching. The whispers had stopped, but the cold remained, lingering like a curse. I didn't know if I'd truly escaped or if they were waiting, just outside, ready to drag me back into that hell. After what felt like hours, I finally crawled out, emerging into the night air, gasping like a man pulled from drowning. The sanitarium loomed behind me, dark and silent, as if mocking me. I don't know how I made it to my truck. I don't remember driving home. But the wounds on my chest, the claw marks on my ankle, the bruises around my neck, they're real. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear that laughter, echoing in the dark, waiting.